Hello everyone, thanks for joining us. I'm just going to give you a wee brief intro into what it is we're doing today. Basically, it's just an Ask the Architect feature that we want to do monthly. Myself and Lorna's the architect, so she'll answer all the questions. But I must put a disclaimer at the start. All advice is to be used as a general guide. Please seek professional advice from Lorna or anyone, another architect, your local planning and building control department before progressing your particular build. Every job's unique to itself, so don't go rushing out and going on this one video call just today. So basically we've got a few questions that we've had from social media. So thanks to Jim, Pam, and Alan for doing that. We'll go through those questions first of all, and then I think we'll do a couple of questions from me if we don't get any in the chat. We've got the chat up so we can see it. And then we can go through maybe a design booklet that Lorna's done recently. That is basically, is it a two-story extension we're going to look at?
One story.
A one-story extension, and it can show you the sort of the varying details that Lorna goes through at the design stage, which is quite cool. The first question then from social media is from Pam, and I'll just get it up here. Can you explain the difference between planning permission and building warrant, please?
Yeah, okay, so thank you, Pam. So, in very general terms, planning permission are concerned with what your actual building looks like, and a building warrant is concerned with how your building's constructed. So that's very sort of general terms. There are things to consider. Are there two separate applications and two separate departments within your local authority? So you've got your planning department and your building warrant department. Typically, you'll put your planning application in first, which is like your basic design, and then your building warrant will have a detailed design that you'll put in after that. Each local authority with your planning department has sort of design guides, like local design guides that they will adhere to, and depending on the local authority, they'll be sort of more complex or less complex. So you're using a local architect, they'll know sort of what that local authority is looking for. So to make sure that your planning application, your design complies with that. With your building warrant, each local authority in Scotland adheres to the same building regulations. So that's to do with like how it's constructed, the drainage, the electrics, the safety of your building, the thermal performance, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, general, that's the sort of loose differentiations. Some things you don't need planning permission for, but that doesn't mean you won't need a building warrant. I think that sometimes catches people out. So that's why it's good to chat to your architect just to make sure that project, which of the consents that you require.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think you want to move in a wee bit. You're just to the side there. I'm hogging the screen. Right. So, second question is from Jim. He asks, can I add a balcony to the back of a Grade 2 listed building? Even better, could it protrude to the side over an extension? Although this would give access to more sun, it would then be sort of visible from the front.
Okay, so thanks, Jim. So with listed buildings, Historic Scotland have certain buildings throughout Scotland that they have listed, and it's like categories A, B or C. And depending on what category it falls in, depends on how much that you can alter and change. The whole reason for it is to kind of protect the character of that building. So any changes will obviously be disrupting that original character. Typically, if it's, well, you've said category 2, that'd be like in Scotland B listing. General rule, that's really the outside of your property. We have just finished, got building warrant and planning permission and listed building consent for a category B listed building, and we were able to change the internal layout and make quite a lot of changes to the outside, but we had to keep the front pretty much what it was originally. So in terms of doing a side thing, I think that would probably restrict you. With the back, it's hard to see because it would also depend on your particular listing, what features that they're wanting to retain, and also looking at different things of how much of the land that you own around it and overlooking and stuff like that. So what we would recommend is a pre-planning application discussion with planning before you start your design, just to kind of get their ideas of what they will and won't accept before you kind of get too far down the line of designing something. Things also to consider is within the planning department, you would have to do planning permission plus listed building consent as well, which is an additional consent that you would have to apply for. And that's basically where they speak to Historic Scotland to see what their thoughts are on the development that you're planning on doing. So hopefully that answers your question.
Nice one. Third one from Alan. We've got options to extend at the side and back of the house or convert the attic. If those options, what would you recommend would add value, if any, to the house?
Okay, so thanks, Alan. I think in terms of renovating and developing, you're always going to be adding value to the house. I think the things that you want to consider is, why are you renovating? Is it purely for a property development sort of standpoint that you're wanting to just do the house up to sell, or is it to do the house up to live in for like 5 to 10 years and then sell? So I think with these things, that's what you want to consider. If you're thinking of living in it for a bit beforehand, I would always recommend, although it's good to kind of keep in hindsight of how much you want to spend on your renovation so that you get a good return, you're going to be living in it, so you want it to work for your family the best that it can. Because even if someone, say 2 people wanted to have a side extension, what their requirements are going to vary very differently depending on their lifestyle and things like that. So someone might want an extra bedroom, someone might want an open plan living, a bigger kitchen. So I think these are things to kind of have at the forefront of how can you make your house work better for you, because ultimately someone coming in to buy it will probably see the sort of the love that you've put into that renovation, and that's what will sell it for them. If you're coming from like a sort of just a property development standpoint, I would say, look at what the other people in your street, what they're buying for, and other houses around, just to see how much you're buying it for and how much the actual renovation will cost, to see if that's going to actually give you any sort of profit.
Yeah, it is tough. We are coming at it from our perspective. We are doing an extension to the side of our house eventually, and we are obviously keeping tabs on how much we bought the property for and how much we're thinking the extension is going to cost. But at the same time, we want to live in a family home, and we want to have the best for our situation. So yes, if you're going to sell it on, I think if you do it the way you want it, it'll speak to other people because they'll be in the same situation as you, I guess.
Yeah. I suppose kind of things that we've been considering with our side extension, our original thought was to completely take down a lot of walls, but then when running the numbers, that was going to add a lot of extra costs. So we're kind of now looking at other options of how can we reduce that cost so that we're still getting what we want. So we're still getting a sort of open plan kitchen, living, dining layout plus an office downstairs, but not kind of how can we value engineer that with again the same sort of principles, because we know that we'll probably sell this house in 5 to 10 years, so we're wanting to think sort of cleverly about it from a financial perspective.
I maybe jumped the gun with the garden renovation. You might have seen on our Instagram. Just got fed up one day and I was conscious that our daughter could fall and hurt her head and whatnot, and I started just digging things out, bits of concrete, and that's just spiraled into a whole garden renovation. So we didn't budget it out, so we've fallen into the common mistakes that people make for that, and that's all my fault. But sometimes the need and the want to get something done can just override you, and you can end up making sort of rash decisions. So it's trying to
Also
come at it with a cool head.
The only thing we could do during lockdown as well was outdoor.
Aye, yeah, exactly. So it did make sense at the time, but we all had our sort of ideas of doing the extension, internal alterations and all this, and it's ended up being a garden renovation to begin with. But there you go. I could ask if anyone watching just now has got any questions, just put it into the comment section because we'll see it. If not, I'll just carry on with a couple that I've got just now for Lorna. So one of my questions is, can our customers give us this sort of question quite a lot, is can you explain the timescales involved from you initially engaging with the customer to planning to building warrant all the way through to construction and then finish? It's quite hard to get that in mind, so especially with finances as well. So
yeah. So again, a lot of these things are project dependent, but typically we say from like engaging an architect to getting like your planning and your building warrant is typically 7 months. Our experience in the past couple of months, just because of lockdown and people working from home and stuff like that, that has elongated out to roughly about 9 months. So these are things to consider when you're planning on when you're doing your renovations, because some people are thinking, oh, maybe want to start building in 6 months, so that is quite a tight sort of time frame to get everything in place. In terms of like the initial design, I suppose it can take for anywhere from about 4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks. There is a bit of to and froing with the customer, so Lorna will come up with maybe 2, 3, 4 designs depending on the opportunity in the brief, and then the customer will maybe get that, and then they'll give them ideas and they'll go, can you maybe change this and can you move this around, and Lorna's happy to accommodate within reason and within guidelines,
so always mindful of any changes to make sure that they're going to be complying with planning and building control. So there's that sort of time frame with planning. Once you put the planning application in, it typically takes about 8 weeks, but that is the time where it's taking a little bit longer, maybe eking out to more about 12 weeks till you get your planning permission. And building warrants similar, between 8 and 12 weeks for that to come through once you've actually submitted it. So it's these sort of things that just all take a little bit longer than expected. But obviously, as soon as you start, you've decided you want to do something, you kind of just want to get the ball rolling and get started as soon as possible. But the
excitement takes over when you get a design and you're like, oh, this is actually quite real now, and but it's something that we like to temper customers with. So
I suppose the actual build times, that will all depend on how big the project is. So so you're doing like a loft conversion, that can maybe take 8 to 12 weeks, but a really large 2-story extension will take a little bit longer, maybe 3 to 6 months, that sort of thing, that could take to actually construct. So
things to think about. We've got a question in the chat from Stuart. Hi Stuart, how you doing? Nice to see you on here watching us. All the way, I won't give out your details, but right, okay. So, how has your working life been during lockdown? Have you found it challenging balancing work life while looking after baby Luna? Yes, Stuart, it's been very challenging. I guess you don't notice the grandparents and any other child support when it's completely taken away from you. We were getting maybe 2 days support, and then we were working it around. Maybe I was doing a lot of the looking after whilst Lorna's got a design to do and whatnot, and it just meant a lot of late nights. Lorna's a night owl, as you know, and but it's been tough. Everyone's the same, I guess, as well, so I hate giving us a big sob story, but it was tough because basically we've got inquiries at the start of the year that got halted for 3 months, 4 months, because we couldn't go out to visit the customer. And then we got new inquiries just bang off the end of the lockdown, because I think people have been sitting about, sort of looking about their house. They're not going on holiday, and they're thinking maybe we can do up the house this year and next because of the COVID situation. And so we got a lot of inquiries, and we had bulked up jobs. So it's not a normal working calendar that we've been working to either. It's like a full, I don't know, 18 projects we're at the moment, and a lot of them are at similar stages, which isn't very common. So it's something we're having to manage, and hopefully, as things return to a more stable situation, we'll get the grandparents out and help us out a wee bit more. So
yeah, I think it's just typically the start of your project. That's when the time can sort of a lot of the architect's time is spent on that sort of phase. So that a lot of the projects are at that sort of phase at the moment. So that's usually typically in a business year, all your projects are at different stages. So that kind of helps balance things out a little bit. But yeah, starting a business when having the pandemic has been a tricky one, and also when you've got a 2-year-old. But yeah, we're getting there. So
hello, David. Thanks for coming on to watch us. I'll give Lorna one more question, and then we'll do a run through of a recent design booklet. So one of our big decisions this year was to introduce an initial £100 initial consultation charge, and a £50 one for going out, an online one. What does the customer get for that, and why have we sort of decided to implement that? I should caveat that we're not actually charging £100 extra. We deduct it from our quote. So if they go ahead, so it's basically like just paying for the work that we're doing at the start of the job type thing, and then hopefully Lorna charms the pants off them and we get the work. So but on you go. What do you get for the £100 consultation?
Yes, typically when people approach us, they usually haven't done any construction work before, and they don't really know where to start and what the process is. So we ask for quite a few bits of information, like where your address, so that we can kind of see what the local authority is and look at those sort of planning guidelines that we talked about. We'll also kind of see what they're wanting to do roughly, just so we've got a bit of preparation before we actually go out, so that we can kind of come at you armed with the knowledge of things that you will and will not be able to do. We'll also then chat you through, I think the most important thing is having a discussion with the client of actually what it is they want to do. So some people come with like, this is exactly what I want to have a rear extension and I want to have an open plan kitchen living area. But some people kind of just know that their house isn't working for them, but they don't exactly know how to fix it. And that's the kind of key thing that we can do, is help you see maybe there's areas that aren't fully working for you, and we can kind of help you create a solution that maybe you haven't thought about. So we'll discuss that with you, and also we'll discuss things like the planning permissions that you'll need, the building consents, if you need listed building consent, if you need any consultants like a structural engineer, if you need, if there's any things that are restricting sort of what your design is going to be as well, we'll chat you through that. And we'll also then kind of follow that up with a sort of detailed fee proposal, which will have all these sort of costs in as well. So you'll kind of get an idea of what your planning permission is going to cost, what your building warrant's going to cost, what our consultant fees, any other sort of consultant fees, so that you can kind of create a sort of list of exactly what this cost might be. Also, we'll give you sort of estimated construction costs. Sometimes as well, through those discussions, there's maybe a few different options that you can consider. There might be a sort of a lower budget option and a higher budget option to help you decide exactly what you want your brief to be. So we'll give you kind of cost estimates for that, and that kind of will help you narrow down your brief to know exactly what you're wanting to do. So even if you don't go ahead with us, you go ahead with someone else, you're kind of left with the sort of the tools to kind of really help you make that decision if you're going to go ahead with a project or not.
Yeah.
So yeah.
like when we're working out the quotes, I estimate that it's 5 hours minimum work, like an hour obviously being at this consultation, but Lorna puts in at least 5 hours of work. So May we get 10 inquiries. We didn't get all that work, but 10 inquiries, 50 hours work, and you would be doing it all for free. It does seem alien in this particular industry as well. But I felt if we're going to do it to high standard and quality, that was the reasoning behind it. And it is daunting because I know we're going to lose work because people will expect that initial thing for free. But hopefully we can put up stuff online like this and do various other things to help people understand that we know what we're doing, and the word of mouth is obviously helpful as well. So
yeah, we're also think it's a couple that we're trying to put a lot of information on a website that people can kind of look at before that is free as well, so that
so the initial questions, and obviously if someone gets in touch and it's a complete no-go, Lorna or myself will email them back and say, listen, we can't do this initial consultation, what you're thinking about doing isn't going to happen. We could maybe suggest something that we could do, but
yeah, so someone might say they're wanting to do a loft conversion, but from looking at the pictures, it just, you could tell that the head height wasn't going to be there. Then maybe we could kind of advise that it's unlikely that would be a viable project, so we can then kind of maybe steer them in a better direction, or maybe if there's no other sort of options, you can
do that. Hello to Susan, happy birthday yesterday, hope you had a good day. Right, okay, so I think that's pretty much covers the questions I've got. If anyone's got any, got a few more viewers. I think we topped at 8 so far. It was quite exciting. If anyone's got any other questions, if not, I'll just rattle on to the demonstration. Right, okay, I'll go into the demonstration. So, this, Lorna, is one of your projects recently, yeah?
Yeah, so I suppose this is just an example of a typical sort of design booklet from after we have been appointed. This is what you would typically get out. So we'll have your existing drawings. This is a 2-story house, and they were wanting a rear single-story rear extension to create a big open plan kitchen, living, dining space.
So this is the existing layout at the moment.
Yeah.
And then, Lorna, how many options did you give them? Can you remember?
There was 3 options. So with this one, actually, they were considering at the start of maybe doing a wraparound extension, but like we kind of talked about during the initial,
so they're in there.
Yeah, we talked about the initial costs of what that might be, so then that helped them narrow down their brief to just a single story rear extension. So the different, although all these options are just a single story rear extension, the layout internally is different to see what would work better for them.
Okay.
So this is the first option. It's a flat roof construction that's going on it. This one we kind of looked about detailing at the side, putting on some zinc cladding just to kind of create that corner.
So there, yeah.
Yep. Internally, we're taking down a wall between the existing kitchen and dining room, because the problem with this house, how it's not working for the current client, is the kitchen is just too small for what their needs are, and it's quite an awkward layout as well, so it wasn't really maximising the use because there was a lot of door entryway. So with this first option, we concentrated the kitchen in a larger kitchen with a nice big island. You've got a utility room, a toilet, created a wee nook in the living room, and then at the back you've got this open plan living and dining space.
Okay.
So what we do is we prepare a 3D model. We've got axonometrics to really help you visualise that space, and then we also have internal views.
So I should say we could have went on to SketchUp and actually manipulated the 3D model, but it's very intensive on the graphics card, and I didn't want to crash the stream, so we're just going into the design booklet, but with a customer we can actually go in and the customer can effectively, it's almost like a walkthrough, can walk through the house and go different angles and everything else. So
yeah, but I think the booklet we try and by creating the econometrics and the internal views to create that sort of idea.
Yeah, a big thing with Lorna's designs that I've noticed, and obviously I've come from a marketing background in my previous life, and Lorna's, that's what I noticed, like maybe things that are probably very obvious, but lighting. Lorna's very big on getting light into rooms, so you'll notice that in a lot of our work.
Yeah, so with these three options, we're exploring sort of different levels of how many openings you would need into this space. So that first one, it was you're still having a central column to try and reduce the amount of steel work in. This was the second option where we had like if you go back to that plan, you've got the WC and utility over into the left hand side. You've got this big open plan kitchen dining area that kind of combines with each other. So it's like a really modern look that you're going for in here with the sitting area. So yeah, but you're kind of creating this big open plan by taking the full back wall off. So obviously that's more cost because of more steel, but it just kind of allows, and a nice big skylight as well. So it just allows you a few different ways of how you can address your brief depending on what your budget is as well.
So is there a big difference in the internal work here?
Yeah, the layout's completely different.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can see this sort of nice big island that then becomes a dining table. So yeah. Nice.
Shall I give you the mouse? Because it's quite clear that I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So this is your whole big kitchen space and then nice big dining space out, and then these big sliding doors with that skylight above. So yes, this was actually the option that the client decided to progress with a couple of wee sort of tweaks to the design. And then the third option for this one was, I'm trying to remember what it was now, just a different position for the WC, and kind of, rather than it being a sort of one elongated dining kitchen space, a separate kitchen space with the dining sitting area, but similar sort of design. It was also looking at different roof lights, so 2 roof lights rather than a big skylight, and just to kind of show you the different iterations of what you can have based on what would seem like one brief. There's always a few different layouts, and each has their own merits and things, so it really just depends on how you see yourself living.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what we sent this out to the client. They then had a look and said basically option 2 was our preferred one, and here's the wee tweaks that we want to kind of incorporate, which we then did and followed up with our final design booklet, and now we're at the sort of planning stage for this. We're putting it together, a planning application together.
Nice.
So that's just to get an idea of what you would get if you were to go ahead with us, to kind of help show you. I think sometimes if you're just given a plan, it's hard to really visualize the space. So yeah, the 3Ds really do help to come alive.
Brilliant. Stuart, fantastic. I'm liking the engagement from yourself today. We'll maybe need to get you on the social media team. Have all your projects so far been based close to home, i.e. Southside based? Do you have any restrictions in terms of location for potential projects? It's a good question. We've had inquiries from Lugton out in Ayrshire, out past Ayrshire. Is it? Yeah. Bearsden, Bridge of Weir. Actually, I've got a list here. It's as if like I'd planned for that question, so I didn't. So this is the areas that we've done so far. Yeah. We've got an inquiry in Motherwell that we're going out to in November if everything's okay with COVID and all the rest of it. We just need to play it by ear with site visits. So in terms of, we've also had someone maybe just feel us out for a job in Ireland, which was quite like new to us, obviously, and I think there is a difference there. A new country and all the rest of it.
Yeah, different regulations and different processes as well. So Scotland has its own sort of, especially with building warrant, you have to get like your building warrant before you start any work. Whereas in England and Ireland, I think it differs slightly. So, yeah, pretty much Scotland is where we concentrate our work on.
Yeah.
I'd say most of it is south side or 10-mile radius of where we live.
Yeah.
Just because of like word of mouth as well, people.
Selfishly, you want to work near to home as well, just because it's easier for transport and everything else. Because Lorna has to visit the site, and if it goes through to construction and all the rest of it. So
yeah, I think definitely that's one thing the pandemic has maybe taught us, that you can actually do a lot of things virtually. So yeah, that's good that you can. Obviously, we have to go out to site and measure up, but the sort of initial design phases and stuff, you can do Zoom chats and share your screen and stuff like that. So that has been something that's been a positive that's came out of it, of how we can also meet up with clients a lot easier and quicker, than like nighttime sort of chats and stuff like that. So that's been one plus point from the pandemic.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so I think that's probably covers everything that we thought we were going to speak about the first time round. I really appreciate everyone watching. We're going to do this every month, so if you've got any questions, fire them over to us and we'll just like write them down and get onto them. But yeah, it wasn't as bad as we thought it was going to be, was it? Or maybe it was, I don't know. We'll see.
Bit nerve-wracking, but I'm sure we'll get used to it.
Total out of comfort zone doing this, but I guess it might be helpful for someone. Right, okay, we're going to end up there then. Thanks for watching, guys, and thanks for the questions, alright?
Thank you, bye.